It's Your Home and Life on 970 WGTK.
Hello again. Welcome back. This is Your Home and Life. I am John Ashton. And there is a woman in the studio with us. I'll introduce her immediately here, Courtney Smith from Benefit Payee Services. Courtney, hello. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, you do something that I find very intriguing. Benefit Payee Services, basically. And for those of us who have elderly or infirm parents or family members, really need to talk to you, because I know one of the things with my elderly parents that always falls through the cracks is, did the electric bill get paid? You know, is the car payment made? What's going on with their normal life as we're all worried about them in the hospital? Are they going to recuperate? You know, is the rehabilitation going well? But there are daily trivial things that oftentimes we either don't think about or don't have time to think about or whatever, and that's the kind of thing where you can, your whole company can step in and help out.
Absolutely. We're really there to serve not only the senior themselves, but also to be of assistance to their family. Most family, honestly, unless they're in the home every day, which is usually most family members aren't able to do because they are also living busy lives.
Sure.
They're working, their careers, church, family, running kids to, Little League practice. Usually it's just an issue of time, but most families don't really understand kind of what's going on in the home, because a lot of times the seniors themselves will hide things from their children. They don't want their children to know that their capacity may be diminishing as far as their mental thoughts are concerned, or they don't want their kids to know that things aren't getting paid or that things are being missed or falling through the cracks, because they're afraid that their kids are going to swoop in and start taking away independence from them or put them in a nursing home. So oftentimes, even when the kids are involved, a lot of times they really don't know what's really going on.
Is there situations, and I know one of the nuclear family is no longer the norm, so a lot of times you'll have parents and children far flung to the four corners of the earth, basically. So that's one of the problems. But is there a lot of in your experience, a lot of like infighting among families when mom and dad get to the point where they can't take care of themselves? Absolutely.
Really, let's face it, there's always going to be some sort of family dynamic in any person's situation. So most of our clients are either going to have no family around, so it's going to be those adult children who live in other states, or it could be that they are estranged from their children. As the children flew from the coop, they never came back and didn't continue a relationship with their parent.
Right.
It could be that the children just, again, don't have the time. They're busy with their own lives. They don't have time to take care of their parents. It could be that the children are dysfunctional within themselves, so they may have a great relationship with their parent, but the children themselves don't get along, so you start having the family strife and conflict between multiple children kind of going at each other and questioning what's going on with mom or dad, or what are you doing with mom or dad, and they can't seem to come to consensus or agreement on medical decisions, financial decisions. And then, oftentimes, let's face it, we have unethical family members as well. And so the statistics show us that the majority of financial exploitation of older adults occurs by someone in a position of trust. And that's typically, their family, their friends, their neighbors, people that, they trust. And so those are usually the ones that...
However sad a commentary that might be. What about confidentiality? I'm sure that comes into play, too, because if your parents go to the doctor and there is something wrong, the medical staff and people like that, they can't call you and say, hey, listen, you got to come take care of mom. Something's wrong with her, right?
Right. And that's really the importance of pre-planning, estate planning. A lot of people don't like to talk about death and dying, but they also don't talk about disability or the effects of aging. And so what you'll often find is families become in a time of crisis. So either the older parent is not going to medical visits, or if they are going to medical visits, they're often not understanding what the doctor's saying, instructions, follow-through, follow-up, medication changes. And so if they don't have the proper legal documents, whether that's being the medical power of attorney or having a HIPAA release, those physicians or nurses just simply cannot share that information. Or like you said, like we could in the olden days, just pick up the phone and say, hey, there's something going on with your parent. that just doesn't exist. So that's why, I always say, I don't care how old you are. You could be someone like myself. If you have children, you need to have your estate plan. You need to have your will done, your advance directives, your medical and financial powers of attorney, because, you have to plan that at some point death will occur, and there's a great chance of having, a disability. And so it's really doing your family members a favor by having those documents put in place before the crisis occurs.
Right. And if do you work with are your clients like the family members who would come to you and say, Courtney, could you help mom and dad, or is it the mom and dad who come to you and say, listen, I don't want to put this burden on my kids, so help me out here?
We've had every situation imaginable. We've had adult children hire us to work with their parent. We've had parents hire us directly. We've had grandchildren hire us. We've had parents hire us to manage their kids who are adult disabled children. So we've really had, the gamut. It just depends on the person needing the help. But I would often say more times than not, the older adult typically doesn't acknowledge that they need the help unless they've come to a crisis point. So most often with that generation, the last thing to go is the car keys and the checkbook. Yeah. So they really kind of think that's their last form of independence, and they hold on to those two things, with all their might. And so usually it's going to be someone that's close to them in their life, whether it's their children, their grandchildren, or if they have a trusted attorney or CPA or financial advisor or a social worker or a clergy person. It's usually going to be someone that's close to them that comes to them and say, hey, you need some help. And so usually, they'll willingly volunteer our services, or sometimes, the courts get involved, and then the court actually steps in and appoints a company like ours to take over.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you just you talk really nice and take a lot of judges out to lunch, do you? Or?
No, I wish it was that easy. No. Usually that happens when a person actually lacks capacity to make decisions.
Gotcha.
So if they can still make decisions for themselves, that's when the proper estate planning needs to be done, where they could either hire us to do daily money management, which is where we just assist them, but they remain in control, so they make their own decisions, they sign their checkbook, but we come in and help coordinate and manage all of that for them. Or they can appoint us to be their power of attorney, where we take over, all the financial management and medical, claims management and all of those things.
Gotcha.
But if the person actually lacks capacity, whether that's from severe dementia, Alzheimer's, a stroke, some typical advanced, disease kicks in, then the courts, if they did not do the proper estate planning up front, where when they had the ability to make decisions, if they didn't do those estate plan documents and nominate their child or a trusted friend or a company like ours to do these things for them, then that's when the court has to step in and make that decision for them.
Sure. We're talking with Courtney Smith from Benefit Payee Services about a myriad of things that they can do to help out financially with situations with elderly parents or family members who just can't do it on their own. But you were talking to me earlier about little things that a lot of us don't think about, but like Social Security, Medicare, things like that. Like Medicare, you have to fill out paperwork every year, right? And if your parents are on Medicare and they're not able to do that paperwork thing, then they're kind of out of luck for down the road, aren't they?
Yeah. One of the important things that's happening right now is Medicare Part D enrollment is November 15th through the end of December. Medicare Part D is for prescription drug benefits.
Right.
And so it's important every year to evaluate whether or not your current prescription drug plan is the right one for you, because the drug companies change which drugs they're going to pay on and how much they're going to pay on those drugs. So each year it's important to get on the Medicare website, and you can actually type in your drugs, how often you take them, the dose, and then they will tell you all the drug plans that cover those drugs, and they will actually give you a comparison and show your out-of-pocket expenses each year. And so it's important to go through that. But, the adult children, oftentimes, and the seniors themselves, they have no idea that this is happening and how important it is.
Right.
Or, if they didn't do a change of address, if they have moved and they didn't do a change of address with Social Security or Medicare. We just actually had a client from, she moved, let's see, this was after a divorce, so, 7 or 8 years ago. Medicare actually thought that she was dead because they had sent her a notice in the mail, which was an address from 7 years ago. Of course, she didn't respond because she didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
They thought she was deceased. They cut off her Social Security benefits.
Oh, terrific.
So it's those little bitty, details and the minutia that we all take for granted, and if we're not tracking it, it actually could have a very significant consequence in that person's life.
Can you deal with, let's say, a situation where the children live here but the parents live somewhere else? Can you deal with that?
Yeah. Depending upon the needs of the family member, we've served clients in Arizona, New York, New Mexico, Nebraska, obviously Colorado. Mm-hmm. So, we can't serve everyone from a distance, but certainly those who just need the basics of bill paying, paperwork management, medical claims management, we can do all that from a distance. Well,
fantastic. We've got about a minute together, and this is what I refer to as the shameless self-promotion portion of the whole thing. So, whether someone has a full-blown need or just wants a little information, how do they get in touch with you, and what's the initial steps that you do?
Well, the best way to get in contact with us is, whether they want to call us on the phone or send us an email. Our phone number is 812-944-4200. We also have a wealth of information on our website, which is www.benefitpayeeservices.com. And on our website, you'll just find a slew of information, not only about our services and testimonials, but also great resource links and articles that just help educate family members on, the effects of aging and, what's available out there.
And if someone doesn't need your services now, they still could talk to you about setting up something because it's going to happen now.
Absolutely.
Courtney Smith from Benefit Payee Services. Again, the phone number
812-944-4200.
BenefitPayeeServices.com.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for joining us on Your Home and Life.
Thank you for having me.